This is BBC One in the North East and Cumbria. Now the BBC News with Jane Hill and Carol Malia at 6 o'clock.
Tonight at 6, a man is convicted of plotting to kidnap, rape and murder the TV presenter Holly Willoughby. Police said Gavin Plum was obsessed with the star and had been planning an attack for several years.
Gavin Plum is a dangerous, predatory individual who was intent on causing the most serious harm to his victim.
Hurricane Beryl continues to cause devastation in the Caribbean. Hundreds of thousands of homes are without power in Jamaica. IVF for southern white rhinos, the project trying to boost the threatened species in the wild.
She's got it! It's Harriet Dart's day!
And the British women's number 2 knocks out the number 1 in a packed day for home competitors at Wimbledon.
In Look North, after the national news, a life-saving kit installed by the parents of a teenager who was stabbed to death. And traders call for Saltburn's fire-damaged cliff lift to reopen.
Hello and welcome to the BBC News at 6. A man has been found guilty of plotting to kidnap, rape and murder the television presenter Holly Willoughby. The court heard that 37-year-old Gavin Plum was arrested after discussing his plans online with a man who was in fact an undercover police officer in the US. The jury at Chelmsford Crown Court dismissed Plum's defence that his plans were just a fantasy. Holly Willoughby released a statement tonight saying women should not be made to feel unsafe going about our daily lives. This report from Charlotte Gallagher contains some upsetting details.
Holly Willoughby, one of the UK's most popular and successful television presenters.
Right, caller number 4.
This was her final appearance on This Morning, before her life changed dramatically. As later that day, Gavin Plum was arrested for plotting her kidnap, rape and murder.
So, at the moment, you're under arrest for conspiracy to kidnap. Who? Holly Willoughby.
I don't think those ones are women.
I'm not going to lie, she's a fantasy of mine. I mean, she's a fantasy of a lot of guys, isn't she?
Plum had even assembled a kidnap kit, which he filmed himself.
Metal cable ties, 2 sets of handcuffs, 1 set of handcuffs.
Police found chloroform in his home and saw he had researched realistic-looking air weapons. He'd also scoured the internet for how to meet people who plan to kidnap celebrities. And he found some, even sending voice notes about his plans.
We're then going to force her to make a video just saying that she come with us under her own free will and she's fully consenting into everything we do to her. So that covers us.
But one of those people he met online was in fact an undercover policeman in the United States. Plum told him he knew where Holly lived, her routine, and how he was planning to abduct her. That detective was so concerned, he contacted the FBI and police here.
Much of the evidence that we've heard in court has been distressing. Some of it's been too graphic and violent to broadcast. Gavin Plum was obsessed with Holly Willoughby and spent hours and hours discussing kidnap plans. He told the jury it was just a celebrity crush. They didn't believe him.
He plotted to kidnap her from her home, take her to a remote location and ultimately take her life. His claims in court that he was a fantasist are simply not true and were evidenced by the extent with which he plotted with others to carry out his wicked plan.
Gavin Plum told the court he was just a fantasist. But this isn't the first time he's committed crimes like this. He has previous convictions for attempted kidnapping and false imprisonment.
I would say that Gavin Plum is a dangerous individual to women. That can be seen from his previous convictions, where he has already overpowered women. And it is demonstrated by the conversations that he was having with others online.
In a statement, Holly Willoughby said, "As women, we should not be made to feel unsafe going about our daily lives and in our own homes. I would also like to commend the bravery of his previous victims for speaking up at the time. Without their bravery, this conviction may not have been possible. This case was about sexual violence, humiliation and degradation. Gavin Plum said it was online chat, something that would never happen. The jury decided his plans were very real. Charlotte Gallagher, BBC News.
Millions of voters are going to the polls in the UK general election. The BBC, like other broadcasters, isn't allowed to report details of campaigning or election issues while the polls are open. You can vote until 10 o'clock tonight, and photo ID is needed to vote in person. Here's Ian Watson.
Democracy in action. At 7 o'clock this morning, 40,000 polling stations opened across the UK. Some in unlikely places, from a hair salon to a laundrette to someone's house. If you haven't voted yet, don't forget, for the first time at a general election, you'll need to produce a form of ID.
Could I please ask you to confirm your address?
This Electoral Commission video demonstrates how it works. A driving licence, passport and bus passes for older or disabled people are all accepted ways of proving your identity. 150,000 staff are on duty to enable you to cast your vote in the privacy of the polling booth, while pets faithfully wait outside. But from Leeds to leaders. In Yorkshire, Rishi Sunak chose to vote early, but you have until 10 o'clock tonight to cast your ballot. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, voted in North London, while today, another night, Sir Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader, voted in South West London. The SNP leader, John Swinney, made his way to his polling place, a village hall in Perthshire. The co-leader of the Greens in England and Wales, Carla Denyer, cast her ballot in the west of England. The Plaid Cymru leader, Rhyn ap Iorwerth, cast his vote in North Wales. But many people have already voted by post, and that includes Reform UK's Nigel Farage. Global media has descended on Westminster to cover the election result. 650 MPs will be elected, so a party needs 326 of them to form a majority. But whatever the result, there'll be lots of new faces in there, because 1 in 5 MPs in the last Parliament chose to stand down. Votes will be counted overnight, and if you're able to stay up all night, seat by seat, the BBC election programme will bring you the results. Ian Watson, BBC News.
Yes, as Ian suggests there, you can see continuous coverage as all the results roll in overnight. Our election programme begins at 5 to 10 here. It's either on BBC One or BBC Two, depending whereabouts you live in the UK. It's also on the iPlayer, of course. And that's all hosted by my colleagues Clive Myrie and Laura Koonsberg. Now, Joe Biden has admitted to a US radio station that he screwed up, as he put it, in last week's TV debate with Donald Trump, but is still resisting calls to withdraw from November's US presidential election. Let's get the latest on all of that from our North America editor, Sarah Smith, at the White House. So what is the latest, Sarah?
Well, President Biden, it seems, realises that the next few days are going to be absolutely crucial. I mean, he insists, absolutely, he is staying as the candidate, but it seems he accepts he has to get out there and prove that he's up to it. Allies have been pretty unimpressed, actually, by the last few days. He's done a few public events. There was a medal ceremony at the White House yesterday. On Monday, he gave a brief scripted TV statement. None of these things really go any way to demonstrate that he is fit to be re-elected as president. And senior party figures who are speaking out in supportive terms, like those Democratic governors who visited him in the White House last night, they are apparently behind closed doors, not telling him that he has to go, but telling him they are very worried that he could lose the election and that he needs to turn this around. So Mr. Biden is going to sit down with ABC News and record an interview that will be broadcast in prime time tomorrow night. That's going to be his first big test. But even if that goes really well, that's not going to be enough to overcome that disastrous performance in the debate. He's got a couple of campaign stops over the weekend, but supporters are saying he should do much more. Maybe some hours-long town hall meetings with voters, taking all of their questions, showing that he can think on his feet and that he's got the stamina and the mental acuity to be re-elected president. And then on Monday, all the senators and the representatives who are currently away on a break, they'll be back in Washington. And if President Biden hasn't impressed them, then that's when the plotting to replace him could start in earnest.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith. Hundreds of thousands of homes are without power in Jamaica after Hurricane Beryl devastated the south of the island. It's one of the most powerful storms to ever hit the country. It has brought destruction across many Caribbean islands, including Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In Jamaica and southern Haiti, heavy rainfall has caused flash flooding and mudslides. Hurricane Beryl is expected to make landfall in Mexico tomorrow. 10 people are known to have died so far. Nick Davis sent this report from Jamaica.
The destruction caused by Hurricane Beryl as it makes its way across the Caribbean was felt here in Jamaica yesterday. The island lashed for 24 hours by storm surges, heavy rain and driving winds, toppling trees, causing power cuts and blocking roads. The country's main airports forced to close, everybody forced to stay indoors with a nationwide curfew that remains in place. Flooding now a real issue caused by the torrential rain that hammered down for hours.
So it's what you can see here, trees which have fallen down, which in some cases hit power lines, which knocked out electricity for about 65% of the island. It's now about trying to get back that critical infrastructure, and in many cases that's not going to take days, but weeks.
Barbados was one of the first islands hit by the hurricane. The cleanup is underway, but the scale of the impact for many people who fish for a living is life-changing.
We don't know how much the total is right now, but we estimate about 30 or maybe 40 vessels on the way.
Hurricane Beryl is now tracking towards Grand Cayman, with winds of 130 miles an hour. In its wake, it's expected to dump up to 6 inches of rain on this low-lying island. While the hurricane is expected to weaken as it continues on its path over the next 24 hours, residents are getting themselves ready to face its arrival, protecting their homes, their livelihoods and themselves.
I'm just trying to keep calm, but I am anxious and a bit scared.
And as the storm continues its trek across the region, Mexico has also put itself onto alert. There's a hurricane warning across the whole eastern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, and having seen the destruction the storm has had across nearly 2,000 miles, people are taking necessary precautions. This is the Atlantic season's first hurricane and the earliest storm on record. And the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is forecasting there will be a large number of major hurricanes this year in what they call an extraordinary season. Nick Davis, BBC News, Kingston.
Well, Tom Hanson from CBS News joins us from Montego Bay in Jamaica. Tom, how bad is it where you are? What have you been seeing?
Jane, Beryl was ferocious and relentless as it crashed into the coast here overnight. But by morning, when the sun came up, we were actually able to get out and see some of the damage for ourselves. And it was nowhere near what we had anticipated or feared here in Montego Bay. We saw a lot of toppled trees. We saw down power lines. We even saw some sunken ships at a marina nearby. And I want to just give you a look at the water, though, because this water is anything but what's synonymous with the Caribbean, that classic electric blue that's crystal clear. It is murky from all the sediment that was kicked up from the powerful storm surge that crashed into these rocks. Now, what we're learning of concern the most is what you can't see, which is power. This is reportable within the last hour. The U.S. Embassy saying that 60% of the island here of Jamaica is without power. And Jane, if you know anything, it is hot here during the summer. People are hanging on by a thread because of this storm. Now they're waiting for the power to come back on so they can catch some relief.
Tom, thanks very much. Tom Hanson there. Here, a teacher has been jailed for 6.5 years for having sex with 2 underage schoolboys. Rebecca Joins, who's 30, was on bail for sexual activity with one child when she began having sex with the second. She went on to become pregnant by him. Sentencing Joins, the judge said, "You were the adult, the person in control, but you failed to enforce the boundaries of proper conduct." The Metropolitan Police is reviewing its investigation into a car crash at a school in London last year in which 2 8-year-old pupils were killed after a Land Rover ploughed through a fence. This happened at the school in Wimbledon. Last week, prosecutors announced they wouldn't be taking action against the driver, saying she'd had an epileptic seizure at the wheel and her medical condition hadn't been diagnosed before the crash. Today, in her first interview, the head teacher has criticised the police inquiry. Our special correspondent Lucy Manning reports.
So it was like a war zone.
Standing on the lawn where their pupils Selina and Nuria died when a Land Rover smashed through the children here.
And the car had gone into the building and dented the building and then sort of jumped back. Debris everywhere.
The 8-year-old girls had just been celebrating at an end-of-term party. Tables and mats laid out. Nuria, talented and chatty. Selina, hard-working with a twinkle in her eye, said her teachers. Prosecutors last week decided not to charge the driver because they said she had suffered an epileptic seizure, which hadn't previously been diagnosed, a decision the school struggles with.
I was very surprised. I think we were both very surprised, as was the whole community, really.
And we've waited and waited and given the police and the CPS the time and the space to make that decision. And now we feel very angry and sad and upset and confused.
But their greatest frustration is with the Met Police, its investigation and what they see as a failure to answer questions since the decision not to prosecute.
There were numerous questions that they were unable to answer. That's made the last week incredibly difficult.
I mean, the police said that their officers worked tirelessly through every detail of the incident to ensure a complete investigation.
It didn't look like that to us at each of those 3 meetings because they were not able to answer some of those questions.
You were shaking your head there.
No, I think the words thorough and tireless suggest that you would have a body of evidence that you would be able to share. But in some areas that there was just a complete lack of knowledge. The lack of thoroughness was how it appeared.
Have you felt let down by the Met Police?
At the end of this process, at this moment in time, it would appear to be that I have been let down by them.
The Met has now decided it will review its investigation, saying it has listened to concerns from the families of Nuria and Selina and others affected. Last week, the driver, Claire Fremantle, expressed her deepest sorrow to the families and said she had no recollection of what took place. The flowers on the lawn, planted from those the community left in tribute to Selina and Nuria. Helen comforted Nuria as she lay injured.
I just talked to her about how wonderful she was, how much we loved her, how much Mummy and Daddy loved her, and what a special girl she was. But we couldn't keep them safe on that day. And that, I will always live with that.
Helen Lowe ending that report from Lucy Manning. Now, we turn to southern white rhinos, which are considered under threat. There are about 15,000 of them in the wild in Africa, but the population is very inbred, making them susceptible to disease. Researchers are now trying to safeguard their future by adding in more genetic diversity. They're harvesting eggs from southern white rhinos in zoos across Europe to help the animals in the wild. Our science editor, Rebecca Morell, has been to Dublin Zoo to find out more.
Xanta is a 22-year-old southern white rhino, and scientists want to save her valuable genes. To do that, they need to harvest her eggs. First, she's given some anaesthetic. And once she's asleep, the specialist team get to work. They've flown over from Germany for the procedure.
Xanta is being checked all the time while she is under sedation. For the last week, she's been given a special hormone injection to help her produce eggs, but collecting them is far from easy. It requires painstaking precision. The hope is, though, that she could help to safeguard the future of her species.
Xanta's genes could help the wild rhino population. Southern white rhinos were almost extinct, down to a few dozen animals. Their numbers have recovered, but they're all descended from that tiny group, so they lack genetic diversity. But rhinos in zoos have been carefully crossbred, so their genes are more mixed up.
A wider genetic diversity gives for a healthier population in terms of disease, in terms of their ability to survive. So Xanta, having wonderful genetics that are worth preserving, we know from a previous reproductive assessment that she can't breed. The great thing about this is that Xanta will be represented in future generations of rhino.
The scientists use ultrasound to look inside Xanta's ovaries. They locate her eggs and use an ultra-fine needle to extract them.
Good reaction.
It's taken years to develop this technology, but scientists say it's vital. The researchers have managed to collect 4 eggs. They'll be taken to a fertility centre in Italy to create new embryos. Rhino IVF is still in its infancy, but the hope is they'll be implanted in a surrogate.
It's a lot of effort, and in the end we actually come home with a few cells. But however, these cells have the potential to become embryos and to form a new rhino, a huge 2-ton animal. So yeah, it is worth it.
A few minutes after the procedure, Xanta is up. Although she doesn't know it, her eggs could make a big difference, ensuring the survival of future generations of southern white rhinos. Rebecca Morrell, BBC News, Dublin Zoo.
At the Euros, England faced Switzerland on Saturday evening for a place in the semi-finals. At a news conference this afternoon, the England centre-back John Stones said the team had an incredible opportunity. Our sports editor Dan Rowan reports from England's training camp near Erfurt.
The players treated to a surprise appearance by singer Ed Sheeran. With some enjoying time away from the training ground, the squad determined to build on their narrow escape in the last round.
That was kind of like an eye-opening that you could be going home any minute. And the relief after in the dressing room was kind of like, right now, boys, it's time to kick on. And I think we got the character and the quality of players in the dressing room to do so. So hopefully we can do that now.
England are considering a surprise change of formation for Saturday's quarter-final with 3 central defenders. And after a series of laboured performances, today one of their most experienced centre-halves said it was time for the side to show what they could do.
We've got an incredible opportunity at the weekend to get through to another stage. We've been in these positions before now, and it's time for us to realise where we are and the magnitude of these things and what we believe we can do and put that into practice.
England are yet to light up this tournament, and yet here they are in the last 8, just 2 wins away from a first ever final in an overseas major tournament. And as the highest ranked team in their side of the draw, they'll feel it's an opportunity they must seize.
And represent the sternest challenge that England have faced here to date.
We played against Germany, we were good. We played against Italy, also a big team. And why not we can beat England in a good mood now, and yeah, let's see. It's a good challenge, and my team is ready.
Well, having been here now for the past 3.5 weeks, England are at the sharp end of this tournament. And if they can prevail against the Swiss on Saturday, they'll know that the Netherlands or Turkey are all that stands between them and a place in the final a week on Sunday in Berlin. But deep down, they'll also appreciate that if they are to extend their stay here in Germany, they're going to have to raise their game.
Dan, thank you. Dan Rowan there. Britain's youngest ever Formula One driver, Lando Norris, has told the BBC he's not ruling out more fireworks on Sunday after his on-track collision with world champion Max Verstappen ended his chances of victory last weekend in Austria. The McLaren driver, who's second in the Drivers' Championship, has been talking to Natalie Perks as he prepares for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
For years, he was touted as the one to watch. But this year, Lando Norris well and truly arrived. His first victory came in May in Miami. It was a moment he'd always dreamt of.
It was incredible. Standing up on that top step and the whole team were down there in front, like that put the biggest smile on my face, I think, ever. Just the feeling inside of like, I'm finally here. I finally achieved it. It's like a relief and just such a special feeling.
He was on a run of successive podium finishes until last weekend. A clash with world champion Max Verstappen ended Lando's race with only a handful of laps to go. With Norris now a bona fide rival to the Dutchman's dominance, this was the first major test of their friendship.
Can we expect some fireworks here this weekend?
I mean, I'm not going to say no, but we were both disappointed things ended the way they did. We want to go out there and put on a good show and race each other hard, and yeah, we love that just as much as people love to watch it at the same time, you know, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, he's not the only British driver in the paddock hoping to do well this weekend. Lewis Hamilton holds the record for most British driver wins here, and he's on a stunning streak of 10 consecutive podium finishes. And Lando's pain was George Russell's gain as he benefited from that crash in Austria to win.
That British win, coupled with McLaren's surge, have helped boost sales for Silverstone after organisers faced accusations of tickets being too expensive. Now Norris hopes he can reward British fans' loyalty.
The fans is what makes it everything that it is, makes it so special, makes it mean so much. You know, it means more to every driver who's won as a home race. They say it's some of their best, and I look forward to hopefully finding it out sooner rather than later.
Once a boy from Glastonbury, now vying to be the headline act. Natalie Perks, BBC News, Silverstone.
At Wimbledon today, there have been British hopes on court all afternoon. The Murray brothers will take to centre court later. And another Scottish player, Jacob Fernley, has given the 7-time champion Novak Djokovic quite a scare. Joe Wilson reports.
Peak time in Wimbledon's first week, lots to see. But if you come with a British perspective, spoilt for choice, where to look, where to head, start at centre court. Britain's number 13 against the most successful men's player of all time. Where's your money? Obvious, wasn't it? Novak Djokovic was stretched by Edinburgh's Jacob Fernley in the first 2 sets, but Djokovic won both of them. Well, of course he did.
Game and first set.
Fernley, at the top of the screen here, perfected his tennis at college in the United States. Nobody knew much about him, including Djokovic. Well, he was learning fast. Look at this. Fernley won the 3rd set. He was inspired. Djokovic, just weeks after surgery, seemed vulnerable. Now he took the 4th set 7-5 to win the match.
Game, set, match. Djokovic.
But by Djokovic's own admission, it was unconvincing.
Sometimes you have rough days where maybe you're not feeling your best, and of course it also depends on the opponent across the net. Today Jacob, I thought, played on a high level, and he made me earn this victory.
On court 1, a British player was guaranteed to win. Katie Boulter versus Harriet Dart. Same age, same ambition, took nearly 3 hours to separate them. The 3rd set went to a 10-point tiebreak. Boulter, the seeded player, Dart fighting her own emotions. She doesn't hide them. The critical final mistake was Boulter's.
She's got it!
A victory for Harriet Dart that exhausted just about everybody. And then, 2 more British players on court. Cameron Norrie versus Jack Draper. Now, Draper is seeded here. He's the current British number 1. Norrie used to be. And as he won the 1st set tiebreak...
Oh, that is grim for Draper.
It seemed Cameron Norrie was just reminding us.
Now, Norrie is such a competitor. Remember, semi-finals here a couple of years ago, and he's taken the 2nd set as well. Draper, you may recall, had a long match in his 1st round. Now, while all this has been going on, those Murray brothers ahead of their doubles appearance on centre court this evening, they've just been preparing, calmly practising on the courts over to my right. Remember all their experience, Jane. Jamie, with all his Grand Slam doubles titles too, they know that waiting is just part of the game.
Another great evening at Wimbledon. Thanks very much, Joe Wilson there. Thank you. And that takes us to a look at the weather prospects. Louise Lear is with me. Hello.
Hi there, Jane. We're all waiting for summer to kick in proper, aren't we, at the moment? We did get some sunshine today, but it's been quite breezy out there. And once again, those temperatures are struggling. In fact, right across the country, all nations didn't see temperatures even around average, let alone below, and it felt quite chilly in that exposed wind. But the cloud will continue to build, and we're going to see more rain pushing in from the southwest, and some of it through the night quite heavy as it slips its way steadily eastwards. At the same time, we'll see some showers, some of them heavy, possibly thundery in Scotland, and sandwiched in between the two, we'll have some clearer skies here, 8 to 11 degrees, the overnight lows. Now, we can split the country into 3 tomorrow. Sunny spells and a few scattered showers for Scotland. Northern Ireland, Northern England, down into Wales will keep that sunshine, and then then we'll see cloud and outbreaks of rain, which could, by the end of the day, turn quite heavy down to the southwest. Now, in terms of the feel of the weather, well, through the afternoon, those temperatures pretty similar to today, still below par for the time of year, 14 to 20 degrees. That rain will move its way steadily northwards, hopefully clearing first thing out along that North Sea for many. We keep some dribs and drabs of rain, and it's sunny spells and scattered showers as we go into the start of the weekend. Hopefully fewer showers further south, but still those temperatures down as the wind direction swings round to a brisk northwesterly for some of us. Don't expect any significant change for the second half of the weekend either. Sunny spells, scattered showers, some of them possibly heavy and thundery as well. Summer is there somewhere. I'll try and look for you for next week, Jane.
If you could. Thank you very much, Louise Lear. And that is the BBC News at 6. Our election coverage, of course, begins at 5 to 10 tonight. Right now, though, it's time for the latest wherever you are. From the 6 team, good night.